Oh, hey, everyone. This is Ryan.
This is Kyle, and you are listening to The Doctor's Watcher,
the podcast where
I tell you all about Doctor Who. I guess you could say the anti-genocide enthusiasts podcast.
Ooh, I like that one. Yes, genocide bad.
Indeed. Trying to think if there's ever a circumstance that it could possibly be justified, and I'm not coming up with anything.
The only thing I've got is it does huge spoilers for 30, 40 years down the road on this show. It does happen in Doctor Who by the Doctor.
That's true.
And that's probably the closest to justified I could think of, considering no one actually died.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess a genocide in which no one actually dies is less bad than the alternative.
Yeah, like a TV genocide for our entertainment. I'm all for that.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it's funny because I just mentioned on the previous episode that I had watched the Section 31 movie, the main character of which was quite genocidal in her past.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Evil Philippa Georgiou.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it's kind of interesting, like, you know, how they set her up as this evil, genocidal mirror universe emperor. And then over the course of like the next few seasons of Discovery, they kind of like, they don't really ever walk that back, but they're like, no, actually, she's like cool and fun and good, and you should like her.
Right. Not super sure how I feel about that. Actually, I think maybe I am sure, and I don't super like it. Because that happens way too often in real life. But
yeah,
whatevs. It's still good TV.
Yeah, for sure.
So how have you been since the last episode 2 weeks ago?
Pretty good. Yeah, not a whole lot new going on. I watched Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country last night.
Nice.
Which obviously I've seen before, but it had been quite a while, and damn, that's a really fucking good movie.
Yeah, it's been way too long since I've seen that one or really any of the original Star Trek motion pictures. But yeah, that's an even number, so obviously it was one of the good ones.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I think over the course of like the past probably 5-ish years, I think I've rewatched all 6 of the original TOS movies. And I've kind of come to the point of view that there's not actually a bad one. Some of them are better than others, obviously. But yeah, I think even the worst ones are like pretty fun and entertaining.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I guess it's pointless repeating a trope that's incorrect. Because yeah, I do enjoy them all. But yeah, for sure, some of them are like way, way good, and some are just like, yeah, that was fun.
Uh-huh. Yeah, and yeah, between those two categories, I would definitely put 6 in the way, way good category.
Nice.
Yeah, it's, you know, it's got a few bits that I wasn't too comfortable with. Like there's a part where Spock basically forcibly mind melds with somebody, and that feels pretty gross and, you know, pretty huge violation of personal privacy and personal rights and whatnot.
Totally agreed. Same thing goes, I would say, for like the control person spell in D&D.
Right, yeah. Yeah, same kind of thing. And yeah, there's a scene of Uhura not being good at translating into the Klingon language, which doesn't seem to fit her character to me at all. But
yeah, canonically, she did just fine for years, didn't she? Like translating Klingon?
As far as I knew, yeah.
Yeah, so what the hell?
So, yeah. But then we also get to actually see, like, Klingon interpreters who are, like, in real time, you know, interpreting a speech from Klingon into English. That was really fun to see. And, like, they're Klingon camera operators in the same scene.
Cool.
So, yeah, I love getting kind of, you know, bits like that of like, no, actually, you know, there is an important thing taking place that people who speak English and Klingon both need to understand what's happening. So, like, here's how they're actually dealing with that in universe.
Right. So in the future universe of Star Trek, I don't ever recall there being deaf people. Perhaps they've evolved or technologied beyond that, beyond it. But one thing I would love to see is a Klingon sign language interpreter.
Oh, that would be cool. Yeah.
It'd probably be like them doing like Klingon martial arts and each move is a word or something like that. That'd be rad.
I think there was an episode of TNG that had a deaf guy, and he had like a few helpers or assistants or whatever. But it's been a long time, but if I remember right, I think that his helpers and assistants basically communicated telepathically to him or something like that.
Oh, yeah, I kind of remember that. Yeah.
So, yeah, it would have been a great opportunity for some future sci-fi sign language, but I don't think we actually got any. Indeed.
Or, you know, fanfic writers consider this idea for free if, you know, you're welcome. Alternate timeline Geordi, who instead of having vision problems has hearing problems, gets his ears upgraded with cool techno innovation with lights and stuff. And now he can like hear a bunch of weird crap. Like he can hear when the energy relays are malfunctioning and stuff like that. You probably hear every fart.
We already have the trope of like the engineer can tell just by the background sound, like when like something is wrong. So like, why not just really lean into that and like just completely diagnose the issue entirely from like the change in sound?
Yeah. He'd be all like, oh yes, the transwarp feedback relay is 2 nanometers off. Duh. Can't you tell?
Can't you hear that?
By the way, I heard you farting.
Real glad my nose is not enhanced.
Yeah, seriously. That fanfic writers, that is not a good idea. With all these fart jokes, I came prepared, because I keep forgetting to do this, but I came prepared with an actual joke, if you'd like to hear it.
Nice. Yeah, for sure.
So this guy's at a cafe and he says, waiter, my coffee tastes like dirt. And the waiter says, yes, it's fresh ground, sir.
Nice. Fresh ground and shade covered, I guess, not necessarily shade grown.
Right. It was in the shade.
Well, cool. On that note, shall we talk about this fresh ground and shade covered episode of Doctor Who?
As long as the Daleks are organic. Oh, wait.
Fair trade certified Daleks.
Right.
So this is episode 6 of The Power of the Daleks. It is episode 14 of season 4. Co-host Matilda is here to discuss it with us.
Her input is always valued.
And yeah, looks like that was about all the input she had. She's curling up in her office now.
Very astute, though. Good observation, Kitty.
Indeed. So, speaking of observation, I don't have a whole lot to say about how I watched this one because it's the same as I've been saying for the past 5 previous episodes. Just going with the BBC official animation that's available on BritBox.
Cool.
Do you remember our Cliffdingler?
Yeah, basically, it was sort of like a multiple dangle because a coup had just happened and the original leader, whose name I knew like half a second ago, but it's escaping me now, had been film negativized. And also, unbeknownst to the humans so far, the Daleks have escalated their chants and are now chanting about exterminating, annihilating, and destroying all of the humans.
Indeed. And as this episode starts, they are continuing that chant. They basically all start pouring out of the space capsule into Lesterson's lab. They actually kind of simplify their group chant a little bit once they're in the lab, and they start just chanting exterminate.
Nice.
I guess, yeah, drop the other words. Just keep it simple.
Right. Don't want to get distracted during the extermination.
Right. We cut over to Polly and Quinn and the doctor, who are being escorted by some guards to sort of the prison holding cells. They get stopped in the hallway by a couple of Daleks who tell them that the area is restricted. And, you know, guards are like, oh, that's weird. Like, we're the guards taking the prisoner and shit. But the Daleks won't let him go. And the doctor notices that these Daleks have gun arms. So he basically leads this whole group of people, including all the guards, down a side passage. And the Dalek just lets them go. I guess they're not trying to enter what the Dalek says is the restricted area, so it's fine.
Nice.
In the governor's office, Janley wants to celebrate because the previous governor, as you mentioned, is dead, and Bragan has taken over the governorship now, and, you know, she's working with Bragan. But Bragan says that they need to deal with the rebels first before they celebrate.
They rebelled against Hensel yesterday. Tomorrow it'll be my turn.
Well, let them rebel. Tell them the guards have taken control. Let them attack, and then we can crush them utterly.
What a dick.
Yeah.
Maybe the rebels themselves are redeemable, and it's just Janley that's a horrible person.
Yeah, she's definitely being exposed as, essentially a double crosser at this point. Like, she's been actually working for Bragan this whole time and kind of, using her position with the rebels to, like, guide them into the position that Bragan wants them to be in so he can crush them all.
Mm-hmm. This is what happens when people don't have class consciousness.
Uh-huh. Janley is not actually sure about, like, crushing them utterly. She thinks maybe they should just, like, arrest them all. But no, Bragan insists that they need to be killed. Janley doesn't really, like, push this point. She's just like, yeah, okay. But we then see that what she and Bragan didn't know is that the rebel Valmar was, like, right outside the governor's office eavesdropping on this whole conversation.
Ah, smart.
Yeah, totally. There's a brief sort of escape sequence where the Doctor basically shouts the word "now," and Quinn punches one of the two guards. The other guard fires his weapon, but he misses, and the Doctor and Polly and Quinn all run away.
Nice.
So yeah, I think, some pretty good dice rolls there on their part. Some poor dice rolls on the guard's part. It all works out.
Yeah, I mean, probably someone got advantage because they came up with the idea for the distraction. That's only fair.
Yeah, totally. We cut over to the guest quarters where Ben is. He also, had a great vacation. He's all rested and relaxed for fighting the Daleks. And Valmar has basically brought him to the guest quarters and is telling Ben that he wants to help him and his friends now, since Bragan wants to kill all the rebels.
Yeah, well, it often happens that way, mate, when you follow blokes like him.
So, that's not relevant to today's politics at all.
Yeah, no, doesn't sound familiar.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on there.
Interesting.
Valmar tells Ben to wait here, basically, while Valmar goes to try to get the Doctor and Polly. Let's, get the party reunited. Bragan, back in the office that is now his, gets on his desk's communications device and basically orders his security forces to not let people congregate in large groups, because that's how the rebels are going to be able to plan shit, basically.
Yep, typical.
And he orders his guards to hit the rebels before they have a chance to organize. And then he switches his comms device over to the colony-wide announcement setting and tells the whole colony that Hensel was killed by the rebels and that he, Bragan, has temporarily taken control.
Sneaky bastard.
Uh-huh. Quinn and the Doctor and Polly arrive in the guest quarters. They greet Ben. They haven't seen him in an episode or two. But they didn't see Valmar. Valmar went looking for them, but they actually just got to the guest quarters on their own. Ben and Polly take a few moments to catch each other up on sort of what's been happening in each of their individual little plot lines. And the Doctor tells Quinn to basically keep Ben and Polly here, and then he leaves. Elsewhere, the Daleks officially received their order to begin the extermination, which I thought happened in the previous episode, but happens, I guess, again now. Maybe the previous one was get into position, and this one is actually start.
Or maybe there's a slow Dalek who didn't realize they were starting already, and they're like, dude, remember Dalek number 426? We have to specifically say it.
Uh-huh. So yeah, they give the order and they continue their group chanting. Exterminate, exterminate, exterminate. Out in the hallway, all the extermination starts happening. Some guards get film negativized. We hear a lot of gunfire in the background. Of course, the guns aren't really going to do shit against the Daleks, but what else are the humans going to do, I guess?
Right. Do they have maybe it's too much of an effect, but I'm picturing bullets, sparking and pew, pew off their armor.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I'm sure that is what is happening, but we don't even get to see any of it. We're just hearing gunshots in the background.
Got it.
Janley is in the laboratory, and she discovers Valmar kind of tinkering with a few Daleks. He tells her that he overheard her conversation with Briggan, so like he knows what's up. And she's basically like, yeah, fuck that dude. He was going to kill me too. And I came here to do the same thing that it looks like you're already doing, because we actually agree on stopping Briggan.
But how can anyone ever trust what she says now?
Uh-huh. Yeah, like, I was like, I don't know about that. But Valmar, I guess, seems to go with her. This Dalek that Valmar has been tinkering with starts to speak, and it's like,
You will lead us to the middle of your party of human beings.
Yes.
We will fight for you.
And how are we ever going to trust anything they say?
uh-huh. Yeah, Valmar is with you on that. He doesn't know if they can actually trust the Dalek. But Janley basically thinks that they have no other choice. So they basically just go along with it. The Doctor bursts back into the guest quarters and tells everybody to head out the window.
The Daleks, they're teeming all over the corridors. We've got to get back to Lesterson's lab.
So they all start climbing out the window. There was a rebel out in the hallway that the Doctor had helped, like on his way to the room. This rebel gets film negativized from behind as he enters the guest quarters.
Brutal.
Yeah. But I guess this basically bought enough time for the Doctor to manage to get out through the window just in time to not get film negativized himself. And he was the last one out. So everyone who was in the room is safe for now.
Nice.
Are you struggling with the stresses of modern life? Here is an easy solution for all of your problems. First, relax. Then, open up your browser or your podcast listening device. Navigate to the Doctor's Watcher and begin leaving 5-star ratings. You will soon feel the stress begin to melt away. Once you begin sharing the podcast with friends and family, you will feel enveloped in a warm, calm, peaceful feeling. Relax.
Briggan makes another colony-wide announcement. He tells everybody to stay in their homes until order is restored. A guard comes into his office and tells him that the Daleks are fighting for the rebels now, and also that the guard's guns are ineffective against the Daleks. But Briggan doesn't really give a shit.
Get back and fight them!
Out in the corridor, we have groups of guards and groups of rebels who are still shooting at each other. Janley and Valmar kind of show up on this scene with their Dalek, and Janley points out a couple of the guards to the Dalek, and these guards get film negativized. But then the Dalek turns toward a bunch of rebels, and Janley is like, no, not them. But those rebels also get film negativized.
Oh.
So, yeah, how is that working out for you, Janley?
Damn it, the leopards, no.
And then these Daleks turn to Janley and Valmar. and it tells them that their usefulness is over. But before it gets a chance to actually film negativize them, another guard spawns nearby and shoots at it with his, ineffective gun. And this actually distracts the Dalek, and it turns away from Janley and Valmar to film negativize this guard instead. And the two of them take the opportunity to GTFO.
I was kind of hoping we'd get a white and black version of Janley there.
The Doctor and Pollen and Lesterson have all made their way back to Lesterson's laboratory, and they're hiding there. Lesterson is like totally defeatist about the whole situation, but he actually doesn't seem to mind too much because he still thinks that the Daleks are pretty cool, actually.
Dude, what the hell, man?
I tried to turn the power off, but they were miles ahead of me. Marvelous creatures. You have to admire them.
But we've got to stop them!
Oh, it's too late for that. They're the new species, you see, taking over from Homo sapiens. Man's had his day. Finished now.
Just rolling over like some kind of... Whoops, I started a genocide. Oh, well, it's all over.
It turns out the genociders are kind of cool, actually, so...
Yeah, I guess they were kind of right. We might as well just die.
They overhear the Daleks, I guess, inside the space capsule still, talking about how they're almost finished setting up their static power supply. And Lesterson tells the Doctor about how Valmar set up a secret power cable for the Daleks that comes directly from the colony's supply. The Doctor obviously wants to know where this cable is, but Lesterson says that only Valmar would know that. I don't know. I think, he said it came directly from the colony supply, so it seems like he should know, but apparently he doesn't.
Right. Like, just kind of look around for not very well hidden cable, because Daleks just have to drape it over their toilet plunger arm and like drag it around.
Out in the corridors, we get more and more shots of people getting film negativized, which includes Janley.
Yeah, suck it, Janley.
Yeah, and it was funny because it was like just totally like non-ceremonial. It wasn't like a big moment or anything. It's just like montage of people getting killed by Daleks, and then one of them's Janley.
Good. She doesn't deserve anything more than that. Quinn
and the Doctor find Valmar in the corridors. He's mourning over Janley's dead body. I get the impression that he kind of had a thing for her, so...
Oh, bummer.
Sucks
Sorry,
for
buddy.
him.
Yeah.
Yeah. They hear a Dalek approaching, so they basically all just hit the ground and play dead. And the Dalek just rolls right on past him. Playing dead worked.
Nice. Vibe check failed.
Valmar tells the Doctor that this power cable is inside of the space capsule, but Valmar thinks that there's nothing the Doctor can do about it. The Doctor decides that he needs more time, so he thinks that they need to use Bragen's guards as diversions for the Daleks. Over in Bragen's office, he's trying to raise like various different security units on the radio and get status updates from them, but no one's responding, mostly because they're all dead. we get a nice long shot of a corridor that's just like full of dead guards and dead rebels, and there's a Dalek just kind of rolling down the hall past them all.
Cute. In an evil way.
Uh-huh. Bregan announces over the colony loudspeaker, he addresses the Daleks specifically, and he tells them that he's the governor now, and they all work for him, and they need to immobilize their guns. Ben, the whole colony hears this announcement, and Ben is like, dude, what a fucking idiot.
What a fucking idiot.
Uh-huh. He and Polly are still in Lesterson's lab, and they basically just like find a cupboard to go hide in.
Smart.
Uh-huh.
Plus there might be snacks.
Yeah, true. Quinn enters Bregan's office. He tells Bregan that the Daleks are not obeying Bregan anymore, and that all of Bregan's guards are dead. There are apparently other groups of guards, like elsewhere in the colony. So Quinn tells Bregan to like call these other groups of guards here to the capital so they can distract the Daleks and give the Doctor time to deal with them. Bregan's like, dude, I'm not gonna fucking sacrifice my guards. And Quinn's like, well, it's either them or the whole fucking colony. And Bregan's like, yeah, okay. So he gets on the radio and gives the order.
It kind of seemed like he wasn't too hesitant to sacrifice his guards before.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I don't know what the difference is now. Unless it's just that, like, a rebel is telling him to do it, so he doesn't want to do it.
No, don't tell me what to do.
Uh-huh. Back in the lab, the Doctor gets to work on making a device.
What's this one made from?
Just like random cables and electronic bits.
Nice. Kind of bummed that there's no like mattress parts or whatever.
Yeah, no mattress springs in this one.
Give us that spare cable over there. Bonnie, keep watching the door. Well, do you know what you're doing? Of course I do. Well, why can't you just take all the plugs out and cut the power off? Because I prefer to do it my way.
Oh, Doctor. Awesome.
Uh-huh. They all hide as a Dalek enters the room. This Dalek notices that the power cables have been moved. And so it starts thinking about this, and then Lesterson comes out of his hiding place and offers to just tell the Daleks who did it. He's like,
I am your servant.
Lesterson says that?
yeah.
Ugh, what an idiot. Dude.
Yeah. He's just like totally gone Vichy.
Yeah. Jeez, dude. Wow. What a quisling.
Uh-huh. He thinks that the Daleks won't kill him because he gave them life. And this Dalek immediately proves him wrong and film negativizes him to death.
Good. Jeez. About time, too.
Yeah, seriously.
Dumbass.
The Doctor plugs this device that he was working on into the power console, and he starts pushing buttons and stuff, while Valmar and Ben and Polly all dodge film negativization rays.
Nice.
Uh-huh. Yeah, they each make a few good dodge rolls, but they don't have to do this for too long because suddenly the Daleks all start exploding.
Nice.
Uh-huh. Yeah, we get this like whole long sequence of just like explosion after explosion after explosion we're cutting to like basically every room or corridor that we've seen throughout the serial, and they just all have exploding Daleks in them.
Awesome. They're really going all out on this episode.
Yeah, it was fun. Like, there were a lot of Dalek models that they must have built for this, and like they're all getting destroyed.
I bet the FX guys were like, damn it, but I guess we still have jobs.
Yeah, it wasn't entirely clear on what actually happened, but I think the idea is that the Doctor, instead of like cutting the power off, he caused a huge power surge and like overloaded them all.
So much static.
Quinn and Bragan are in the governor's office, where there's also a Dalek, and this Dalek also explodes. And Bragan is like, cool. I guess the examiner was successful.
Nice.
So yeah, they both kind of relax for a moment, and then Bragan suddenly grabs Quinn's gun and says that, you know, now that the Daleks are dead, he can restore law and order on this planet. Quinn is like, fuck that, dude. No one's gonna obey you now. Like, we all know, you know, that you're a asshole dipshit who, you know, is just gonna kill all the rebels and everything. But before this argument can really get very much farther, there's a gunshot from off screen and Bragan falls dead.
Yay.
Yeah, I like how this episode is just like lining up and knocking out all the bad guys.
Yeah.
It turns out in this case that Valmar shot him from, you know, I guess the door of the office. He showed up.
Nice one, Valmar.
He was a murderer. And now for guns, there's a lot of clearing up to be done. We will rebuild together.
Nice.
Yeah, totally. In Lesterson's laboratory, I guess whatever the Doctor was doing, messing with the power supply, actually knocked the Doctor unconscious as well.
I love how all this stuff just kind of happens. Like, oh, turns out you didn't see it, but the Doctor went unconscious too.
Yeah, all we actually see is him like waking up from unconsciousness. And everyone tells him like what happened and that like he defeated the Daleks. He's acting like he doesn't really believe this or remember it, though.
Did I do that?
You know you did.
You used the power from the colony's electric supply, overfed it, and blew up their temporary static circuit. Well, didn't you?
Did I do all that?
Weird, but awesome.
Apparently, this also basically destroyed the colony's power supply in the process, though. Valmar says that it will be months before they'll be able to get the colony back to normal.
I did a lot of damage, did I?
But the Doctor's not too concerned about the colony. He basically turns to Ben and Polly and he's just like,
I think we'd better get out of here before they send us the bill.
Nice.
Yeah, you know, we defeated the Daleks, now let's GTFO before we have to deal with the consequences.
Right. We don't want to rebuild or anything. They can all do that.
So we cut to, you know, a little bit of time later. The three of them, Polly and Ben and the Doctor, are walking back through the Mercury swamps toward the TARDIS. The Doctor is playing his recorder as they walk. And Paulin are talking about how, you know, some thanks from the colonists, like, would have been nice. And, you know, the colony really should have been listening to the Doctor the whole time.
As usual.
They arrive back outside the TARDIS, where there's also the shell of an exploded Dalek. I guess, like, yeah, the Daleks had found, or at least this one Dalek had found the TARDIS, but got exploded just in time.
Nice. Good luck on that. Or good luck there.
So they head into the TARDIS. It dematerializes. As it does, this Dalek shell's camera arm moves.
Oh boy.
And with that, the words on the screen say Doctor Who Patrick Troughton.
Wow. Well, that was pretty awesome. I really like that last touch. Like this one isn't quite dead. Crazy, but super fun.
Yeah.
Super fun.
Who knows if we will ever revisit this planet or this colony and like see if anything came of this Dalek that's not quite dead.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably the last time we'll see the Daleks. You'd think would learn their lesson from that.
Yeah, you'd think. You know, the Doctor is clearly capable of destroying them in any circumstance, so I'm sure they'll just stop messing with him now.
Right. If they were smart, they would. Well, cool. That was an awesome series. The Power of the Daleks, very, very entertaining. Overall, would you say you recommend this one?
Yeah, I definitely would. Partially for, I guess, historical reasons, because it's the first second Doctor story, obviously. Mm-hmm. Also, it has Daleks in it. That's always, a plus sign in the pros column. And it was legitimately a really fun adventure. I really enjoyed starting to get to know the second Doctor and kind of his similarities and differences from the first Doctor. He seems to really be leaning into the whole like smartass thing, which is really entertaining. I like that a lot.
Same here. Love it.
I also really like this thing that he's doing where he kind of lets people think that he's an idiot who doesn't know what's going on or what he's doing when actually he isn't and he does.
Yeah, that's fun.
So yeah, I'm enjoying that. And of course, if you have access to BritBox, it's easy and accessible to watch the animated version of the serial. So yeah, I definitely would recommend it.
Awesome. Yeah, I'd say for many people, the accessibility is probably a huge factor there because some of them would be pretty tough to track down or, you can't actually watch live video of them.
Right. And yeah, like we talk a lot about loose cannon on this podcast and I love the loose cannon reconstructions. I love that there were a bunch of fans who were so dedicated to making sure that there was like something to watch for every episode. And yeah, I appreciate what they're doing, but as great as they are, like when we have like an official animated version of the serial produced by the BBC, even if it was on an extreme rush and is not the greatest quality animation, like that's still a lot of fun and can potentially be more engaging than the loose cannon reconstructions.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially for, non-Who historians, like if they're just Who fans, but not as dedicated as perhaps they should be. No shade, but yeah, I think the accessibility goes a long way.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah, I really like the parallels of today's, universe. Clearly we're in the, the evil version of the universe in our timeline. And yeah, I really like who pretty much parallels, like it really makes a interesting observation how banal and predictable authoritarians are and just their methods. I don't even know if they were trying to do that on purpose, but it's just like so easy to like know.
Yeah.
Like, of course the guy's going to declare martial law. Of course he's going to be pretty cavalier about, sacrificing people. Of course there's going to be double agents. Of course there's going to be Quislings who they're like, oh, dear leader, I serve you now. Not the Daleks, but Lesterson,
Yeah, it's all just like right out of the Dummy's Guide for How to Be Fascist.
Yeah, exactly. So props to the writers there. I mean, those are all, they seem like super easy things, but it's very good to have them called out and demonstrated yet again.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like how clearly and explicitly they're showing us like the true meaning of fuck around and find out.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome.
Janley fucked around, Lesterson fucked around, Bragan fucked around. They all found out.
Yep. The leopards were hungry.
Uh-huh.
And of course we saw, many more or less innocent people too who got ground up and eaten by leopards. The guards perhaps less so, but like the rebels, they probably didn't know that they were going to be walking into the ultra lethal Dalek killing zone or
right.
Like they were just trying to get some freedom, presumably.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting, like, obviously the quote unquote good side like wins out in the end in this serial, but yeah, there's a lot of death and pain and destruction along the way, and a lot of it is to people who don't actually deserve it.
Right, exactly. Well, very good life lessons thanks to Doctor Who.
Indeed.
Well, that was awesome. My very first Doctor Who series on the Doctor's Watcher. I feel very accomplished, even though all I really had to do was sit here and listen to you telling me about it.
Nice. Yeah, I'm glad that we got a good one for your first one.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, there's at least I don't remember any like very bad racist stereotypes. There's, the expected amount of patriarchy, what is this 50s, 60s era Britain, even in the US, like including today, like that it's always been bad. You kind of just have to assume it. I kind of wonder like what they were assuming our reaction to the rebels would be, because, typically I would say like the average Western citizens' reaction to rebels would be like, oh, they're bad or something.
Right. Yeah. Just the fact of that they are rebels.
Yeah.
Kind of equates them to being bad.
Right. We shouldn't be thinking for ourselves or anything.
Uh-huh. But no, actually, like, when the regime is fascist, then being a rebel is actually good.
Right. Being anti-fascist is actually good.
Uh-huh.
Well, awesome. Thanks, Kyle, for describing that incredible Doctor Who series to me. The Power of the Daleks was indeed powerful.
Indeed. And thank you for listening and reacting to your first Doctor Who serial as the co-host of the podcast.
Pleasure. And thanks to Circuit 23 for having the inspiration to make the awesome theme song for this podcast.
Indeed. To all of our listeners at home, as you are doing your Saturday morning chores or whatever, thank you for listening to us talk about Doctor Who. And yeah, tell your friends, give us nice reviews on whatever site you prefer to review your podcasts on, and all that.
Yes. And if you hear some clicking, it's because I'm looking up the Blue Sky because I want to get the address correct. It is drwatcher.bsky.social.
Nice.
Email thedoctorswatcher@gmail.com in case you have love letters, hate letters, or lukewarm letters.
Indeed, we always appreciate any comments from our fans. Tell us what you thought of the serial. Send us questions. All that fun stuff.
Yes, and include the weirdest emojis and or GIFs that you can find.
Indeed.
All right. Well, listeners, I guess we will see you in approximately 2 weeks for the next episode of The Doctor's Watcher.
Bye.
Bye.
The law of the Daleks is in force. Extermination of humans. Our cables have been moved.
And I could tell you who did it.
What were you doing in there?
I want to help you.
Why?
I am your servant.
We do not need humans now.
But you wouldn't kill me. I gave you life.
Yes, you gave us life.